I once had a panic attack at the cinema. Not because of the movie I was watching, but because I was terrified of having to leave and getting up and blocking someone else's view behind me. Yeah, that happened. If, worrying about blushing, stuttering, sweating, or, dreading social settings altogether sounds familiar to you, this video is very important because today I'm going to explain, I'm going to show you why this social element is such a common one in anxiety from an evolutionary standpoint, why this is the case, and I'm going to share with you 4 important techniques that you can use to actually crush this and overcome this, because the most popular advice I think you may have gotten is to just push through, right? And that is actually not going to work. It's not working because otherwise you wouldn't be watching this video, right? And if you stick to the end of this video, I'm gonna share with you a couple of embarrassing moments that I had in my life so far, just to kind of illustrate that, it's not the end of the world when it happens, but also, let's be honest, for you to kind of have a laugh, right? So the first point being, I just want to kind of explain why, from an evolutionary standpoint, we value social settings so much. Because, get this, humans are wired to be social. Because if you think about like the old days, basically when tigers were surrounding us and hiding in the bushes all the time, when there was actual danger around us, being in a group meant survival, right? We had people on watch while we were sleeping and vice versa. Or we would go out and, move around and travel in groups so there's multiple eyes on the surroundings, to catch any tigers or other predators that were lurking, right? So being in a tribe, in a group, meant survival or safety. So that also means that if we were out of that group for some reason, if we were outcast, if we were, exiled from that group, if we were on our own, we would likely not survive. We would likely be dead. And that wiring in the brain has basically evolved over time, leading us to now where we still have that same wiring, right? So because it was crucial for us surviving to move in tribes and to be, a part of a group, we still have that wiring where we actually often care about what other people think. We care about how we come across, if people like us, if we are a part of a group, right? Think about it. You have various groups in your life that you are a part of, be it, your family could be one of them, your co-workers could be one of them, or your friends in general, right? It's all various groups that we actually really value and we want to be a part of. And what I often see after speaking to hundreds and hundreds of people with anxiety, and basically speaking with people with anxiety every single day, is that often the people who've developed anxiety, it's not always the case, but often they have certain patterns where, especially with social anxiety, they may worry, overthink, or ruminate a lot about this. What will they think? Did they actually like me? What are they saying behind my back? And we constantly ruminate, or we go into this people-pleasing thing where we just do and say whatever they like just to be part of that group and just to get that relief, that safe feeling. Or, we say yes to the things we actually want to say no to. And over time, those patterns, they kind of stack up. That stress we get from it stacks up until we, get a panic attack or until we experience anxiety. And then this actually gets worse because now this social setting becomes harder to even encounter, to go in, to actually perform in, right? Because now we suddenly cannot trust our body anymore. Like right in the middle of that conversation, we get a panic attack and we cannot even pay attention to the conversation. All we think is, I gotta leave, or what if they see me blushing or freaking out, right? And what we often see is that people start thinking about this even more. Like the overthinking just gets worse and worse because now we're avoiding social settings and we have to make up all kinds of excuses why we can't make it. And that just feeds into the worry of like, will they stop inviting me at one point? What will they think? Will they think I'm weak? What do they think of me? So naturally, we just start suppressing the symptoms even more, start suppressing anxiety even more so we can go out and not have a panic, but in essence, that always feeds the anxiety. It always fuels the anxiety, making it worse, which is something maybe you've learned if you watch a couple of other videos that I have, right? So avoiding anxiety increases the anxiety, and often, sometimes what we see is that people actually become kind of almost entirely housebound, whereas, their friends, their peers, their family members, these groups are all continuing without them. And that just feeds into the feeling of hopelessness, of stuckness, of anxiousness. And so the first point I want to make there is that you're definitely not broken. This is so incredibly common because, once again, that survival instinct, the social setting is part of that survival instinct we have. We naturally want to be part of the group. And when anxiety strikes and we don't know how to deal with it, we naturally lose control in our own ability to be a part of that group, or to be the old self we used to be, like cracking old jokes and everything. And now we're just suddenly all this serious and negative, right? And this actually happened to me. I just want to kind of, I'll keep it short, but I'll just give you my story around this because I think it'll illustrate, and I'm hoping this will resonate with you as well. I used to have this irrational fear of vomiting or fainting in public. Right? And I used to worry so much about what strangers would think of me. Right? Not even my closest relatives or friends. No, these strangers in the train, for example. Or as I said, in a cinema, I would be like, what if they would help me? Right? What if they would get up and need to help me? Or what if they would feel like I am weak? What if, I'd be so embarrassed because I'm vomiting or fainting and everyone would be uncomfortable and I'm like, I don't know how the hell to deal with it. Like, I had no idea. As I said, in the cinema, I couldn't even, I felt like I couldn't leave because if I stood up, I was blocking the guy or girl behind me, their view of the screen. Like, the audacity, right, for me to do that. Like, that was so on my mind, and I kept on suppressing it. But I was just confirming that story. I was confirming that somehow this was dangerous. And I kept on feeling more nauseous, which was validating that same thing. I was feeling more nauseous, more panicking, like I had to run, more shakiness as if I needed to, or as if I could at any time start fainting, right? So the whole story, the catastrophe I had in my head started to look like it was becoming a reality. And this is a great point, a bridge to the point I want to make is that anxiety always comes with a story, a catastrophe you believe will happen. It always does, and that actually fuels the anxiety. So an example would be like, oh, everyone notices when I have anxiety, or I'll lose my friends if I get a panic attack, right? Or if I blush, I will lose my job, or if I don't nail this meeting, I'll get fired. And those stories feed the anxiety. They increase the symptoms. They basically tell your nervous system, when you engage with these stories, that the nervous system needs to be on high alert for these, experiences. Because what you're communicating to the nervous system is, for example, if I get a panic attack at my friend's birthday party and need to leave and then they'll hate me, the nervous system will actually see that as a threat. So it will actually, at your friend's birthday party, kick in the old fight or flight response because it wants to kind of fight off the threat of that story that you have. Having to leave and everyone hates you because that goes against your survival instinct. But it actually triggers that survival instinct to the point where you feel anxiety or panic and you go like, oh no, now I have to leave. But then also they won't like me anymore. So it's that vicious cycle we get into where the nervous system is trying to help us, but we mistake it for actual danger and we believe a story, right? So we need to crush the story so we can validate and confirm to the nervous system that we're safe. And then we can allow anxiety to show up and our discomfort to show up and kind of pass like this. I have a couple of videos on that. The one on my mind right now is a Q&A I did with my head mentor Mirka, who's incredibly experienced and well spoken. I'll put the link below this video. It's about an hour-long Q&A with that shows you exactly how the recovery journey works, and we talk about this response and about acceptance. So if you want to learn more about this, I'll definitely say I recommend watching that. Now I'm going to give you a couple of techniques to crush these stories, because again, the stories feed into the anxiety. So even if you're allowing and not resisting your anxiety, that's great. But if you still believe those stories, if you're still subscribing to the stories, you're going to get more symptoms and it's going to get overwhelmed and you're going to naturally go and resist it again. The first one, and this is my favorite by far, is identifying thinking errors. We all have, as humans, we have certain thinking errors. They're called cognitive distortions, right? We have a negativity bias. But anxiety kind of cranks this up. We have even more of these because the anxious brain will go and think more negative thoughts because it's under the impression we're always in danger. So it's a hyper vigilant on high alert. So you have more. You'll notice you'll have more negative thoughts than you have positive thoughts, and there are thinking errors hidden in your thought. And if you can catch them, you can crush it very quickly, very easily because you're like, oh wait. This is a thinking error. What is the truth? I'm going to give you an example and apply a couple of most common cognitive distortions to it, so you can kind of use that for yourself. And I would once again say take notes if you can, because this is very good to remember and remind yourself of. It's a practice, right? So the first one, the example is they'll see how awkward I am if I start to sweat, blush, or stutter, whatever it is. The first one comes to mind is emotional reasoning. This literally means reasoning from how you feel. So I feel awkward, I feel weak, so I must be weak and awkward, right? But those things actually aren't the same. We just feel something. Like if anxiety shows up, we feel like we're in danger, but we're actually not. If I do something stupid, I feel like an idiot, but I am actually not an idiot, right? I do other stuff that contradicts me being an idiot. The other one is mind reading. Mind reading is such an important one to know about as well. It's as it says, where we kind of seem to know what other people might think. We jump to the conclusion of what they must be thinking. So in this case, they'll see me. They'll think I'm weak for stuttering, for blushing. It's like, well, we don't even know that. They might not even think about you at all. Like you are thinking about yourself. Most people are thinking about themselves as well, right? So you don't know what they're thinking, and not everyone is always thinking about you, right? Mental filtering is another interesting one. It basically is, there's another one, discounting the positive, and mental filtering is kind of a similar one where we say, we only focus on the negative aspect of it. We don't focus on the positives, or if there are, if we do notice any positives, we kind of discount them. They're less important, less valued less than the negative things. So that means in this case, even so, say you had a board meeting or a job presentation, and you did start to sweat and blush a little bit. But you nailed the whole thing apart from that, you did your job, right? It was good. People had value. They kind of liked it, whatever it is. Maybe you even got feedback, because I've heard this before. Like, check out Noel's video, actually. I put a link below this as well. Noel used to be he's a graduate now of the program, and he had a panic attack at a Zoom meeting for like 90 minutes. And he felt, he's like, I didn't know what to do. I screwed up completely. And then his coworker said, "This may have been the best presentation you've ever had." And he was like, "What's going on?" And the next time in the Zoom meeting, he got another panic attack and everything. He's since obviously recovered, so check out the video and see how he did it. But maybe you get feedback of your coworkers as well and go like, "Oh, that was a good presentation." But when you do the mental filtering or discounting the positives, you only think about the fact that you blushed. So you discount all of the positive stuff. There's also fortune telling, which basically means you're looking into like a crystal ball of the future, but it only shows the negative outcomes. So you think, oh, they see me weak, they see me, stutter or sweat, so now I'll lose my job, or they'll never invite me. And those are just a couple of examples, just 4 examples. I want to just kind of see for yourself, if you can, how many of those do you catch within your own thoughts. You see if you can recognize any of them, because these are very, very, very common with people with anxiety, right? And it's helpful because if you know, oh wait, I'm mental filtering, oh wait, I'm discounting the positive, oh wait, I'm jumping to conclusions, or emotional reasoning, you can then remind yourself of what is the truth, right? Oh, this is just a thinking error, right? I don't need to engage with it. The truth is actually it's a bit more balanced. Maybe I blush, but also I did a good job. So there's no need for me to worry too much about the blushing. That's just my survival mechanism, right? The old part of the brain, valuing me being part of the group, right? You can kind of appreciate it that way. The second technique is saying, so what? It's the easiest one I can ever think of, and it's so powerful because you can say so what or whatever plus then the truth. So the easiest one is just saying, so what? This is just a story. It'll pass. I'm not gonna engage with it. Or say, so what? This is just nervous energy, right? The anxiety is just adrenaline going through me. Again, it will pass like a wave, right? You can also say, if it happens, whatever, I'll be okay, right? Whatever people, my friends will still care about me, and the strangers who think something bad, I don't want to be friends with them anyways, right? Those kind of things. Just remind yourself saying, so what? So you stop subscribing to the stories, stop feeding all that anxiety, and then allow all that to be and trying to refocus to the task at hand, right? So you stop fueling the anxiety when you stop engaging with the story. Also, this is, we're saying so what or whatever. Some people like to say F it, right? Just a little bit more direct approach. You say F it, this is the truth. Or F it, this is just harmless, whatever, right? Whatever works for you. We all have our own self-talk. Technique number 3, double standards. It's such a powerful one. I love it. It's basically to say, imagine having your best friend opposite you, or your brother, sister, sibling, or an exact copy of yourself, whatever. And he or she is saying to you the things that you are now saying to yourself. So, if they see me stutter, they'll think I'm weak, I'll lose my job. What would you say to that person? Would you say, yeah, well, yes, you're right. If you stutter, you're an idiot and you will lose your job, right? So you shouldn't just speak at all anymore. Or would you would say to this person, like, that's okay. People actually, they'll still listen to you. They'll even have more appreciation for your courage to speak, even though you stutter. Like, people will have a little bit of patience through it, And the thing is, when we say these things to that we would to say someone else, we actually say the same things that the other people probably think of you. So when you're mind reading saying they'll hate me, they think like an idiot, they're probably like 90% of the people are thinking the same things that you would tell your friends. It's just you are not giving yourself the compassion you give to everyone else. You're basically the most critical and harshest towards yourself than anyone else. Like, no one is going to treat you that harsh. Or if they do, if it's the 10% that may, like, you don't want to be friends with them anyways. I say F them, right? If they think something bad of you while you're doing the best you can, you're respectful, right? You're engaging, you're doing everything you can, right? In a respectful manner, and they think something of that. Well, F them, right? They're not your friends, and if they are, well, rethink your friends, right? Rethink your friends. Anxiety can actually help us in some ways like that. Because you'll see that the people around you, and most people, like 90%, they'll actually think the same thing. And the other 10% that might think something bad of you, well, F them, really. You don't want to be friends with people like that anyways. You can't control what everyone is thinking, but 90% of the people are thinking the same way that you would kind of do with it being someone else. You're just very hard on yourself. So that is something we need to allow to let go as well. Number 4, the fourth technique is the paradoxical intention, which is an incredibly powerful one as well. If you're up for it, try and stutter, try and blush, try and sweat like crazy. Whatever worry you have in public, you can kind of challenge yourself and say, like, I'm going to sweat like hell in this board meeting or on stage or whatever at this friend's birthday party, right? I'm going to call in the old Guinness Book of World Records for them to come over, a representative from them to come over with the freaking timer and the measurement, whatever, and I'm going to sweat like hell. I'm going to show them how much I can sweat, right? Because you'll see the more you kind of want it, the more you set your intention towards the thing you would normally suppress, the less that actually happens. It's such a powerful one. I actually tried to kind of like vomit or faint, or I was like, I don't even care anymore. I just, whatever happens, happens. And it just reduced the anxiety, kind of made it go away almost immediately. because, you wouldn't be asking for a second tiger to chase you if you were actually in danger. So this is why the threat response, the survival mechanism, quickly dies down. So in conclusion, allow anxiety to show up. Yes, that's one thing, but also work on those stories. Use those 4 techniques to work on the stories. So catch thinking errors, correct it back to the truth. Just catching even like, oh, I'm emotional reasoning already kind of does that, right? You can say, so what, whatever, F it, and then add something to it that makes sense to you, right? So think about it. I've given you a couple of examples, but it helps if you kind of, if it's your own wording, if you kind of believe in it a little bit, you don't have to fully believe it. Try the double standards technique, right? You could do it in writing, in your head. The paradoxical intention is something awesome to do if you're ready for it, if you're up for it. And the more you do it, the easier it gets, but it is a practice. So just hearing about these things is great. I'm hoping this has been a valuable lesson for you, but you want to be implementing it. And one thing that really helps with social anxiety, what I've seen over and over, is that often we don't really feel always that understood by our family or friends. And sometimes this leads to kind of like some relationship stress or issues where, people feel like, you don't want to join their party, or you don't, you miss the wedding because you hate them, which isn't the case. They just don't know how it feels, right? They think just push through, just think positively, right? What are you doing? And what really helps, and I've seen this over and over, is to be part of a tribe where people, where everyone basically it knows what anxiety is and has anxiety or has recovered from it and knows how to do so. And on the screen, you can see a couple of comments we recently got where people were like, wow, I feel so understood by being in this group, and it makes it easier also for you to work on it and not care as much for the time being about what your friends or family think, and just say they don't understand, and I'm glad they didn't because they haven't lived it, right? So they don't need you. I have my tribe over here. They'll help me get through this. And then I'll show my family, I'm back. I can do everything again. I'll tell them even what I learned if they are interested, right? Maybe I can even help them. And the thing is, and what I've created, I've created 2 things. I've created a free community for anyone who likes to join and to talk about anxiety, and more specifically, how to respond to anxiety, to actually, keep each other engaged and motivated to learn how, non-resistance and acceptance works. On top of that, I obviously have a mentorship program. You may know a little bit about it. If you like to speak to someone to get yourself in that mentorship, to apply for it, you can do that below. I'll also put a little note underneath this video. And obviously, as I promised, I would share a couple of embarrassing moments. There are plenty for me to share, but the ones that kind of came to mind when I was thinking about this was this actually isn't that long ago. I was in the supermarket, and the employee at the supermarket was like working on these boxes. They were all stacked. And I don't know, for some reason, I thought the boxes were about to tilt over. So I, leaned in to kind of, I was thinking helping him. But by me doing so, I actually tipped over the boxes. So this guy, it was like Christmas time, was bloody busy, and he looked at me, he's like, what are you doing, man? You just threw everything on the ground. But I honestly, I try to help him. Also, one experience when I was younger, my drumming teacher, he asked me to, he said, go grab a coffee. And I misunderstood. I thought he was saying, I could grab a coffee. So I was like, I don't actually want a coffee, thank you. He's like, no, it's not for you, it's for me, right? The jerk. I also had this. I tell this in the program sometimes. It's a little bit of a nasty story, but I once ate something bad, rushed home from work to because I was feeling so sick, and right at almost the last stop before my house, the stoplight, I started vomiting in the car, like all over me. I had a little cup of coffee that that was out of coffee. There was no coffee in it. And I was vomiting in the mug, but it spilled over. And I was looking to my left, and I saw this van full of construction workers looking at me like all shocked. And I felt so embarrassed. And also once, multiple times, I guess, at a presentation, I fully blacked out and started blushing. It happens to me sometimes still, even today, but I don't beat myself. I don't beat myself up over it anymore. I also don't tend to go back into the past to try and fix it, because the past is the past. I'd rather kind of laugh about it, because it shows that, we're human. I'm still alive. The world didn't end. similarly, your world didn't end. You are still alive too. So in our head, it's such a catastrophe. But it's so good to kind of show your brain that, the world doesn't end. It's just wired that way that you're gonna die if you embarrass yourself, but you're not. I'm still here, you're still here. Both of us probably have had a couple of embarrassing moments. In fact, write it down in the comments what your embarrassing moment was, because I shared mine, so it's only fair for you to share one of yours as well, just to show everyone here we're all human, and that is the whole point. So I hope you liked this video. Like, subscribe, tell your friends, family, whatever. Check out that free community, and as I said, write in the comments any of the embarrassing moments that you have, and also maybe one of the cognitive distortions you caught in your own thinking. So thank you for watching, and go ahead and have fun practicing this.